They say revenge is a dish best served cold, and revenge is sweet. So, revenge is ice cream. Today, I'm going to recap a 2014 action thriller film called Rage. The film opens with Paul Maguire outside his daughter's school. He finds out his daughter, Caitlin, has tattoos, and he mildly scolds her. She reassures him, saying the tattoos are part of school project. Then Paul drags Caitlin home, advising her to always do her best in school. Later, Paul meets up with his friends Kane, a bar owner, and Danny. He's planning a birthday celebration at Kane's bar, and is keen on ensuring it all runs smoothly. He tells Kane not to serve alcohol to Caitlin and her friends, and leaves feeling reassured after Kane agrees. Next, Paul, a construction company owner, and the town's mayor are interviewed by reporters. They've been collaborating on a plan to create 100 new jobs, with profits aimed at funding medical research and educational initiatives. That evening, Paul and his new wife, Vanessa, get ready for a major charity dinner. Meanwhile, Caitlin, her friends Evan and Mike stay at Paul's house. Paul knows Mike works as a dishwasher and promises him a summer job at his company. Noticing Mike's affectionate gaze towards Caitlin, Paul talks to him privately and allows him to date her once he's sure Mike isn't involved with illegal drugs. Paul and Vanessa stay out late, discussing his business with another couple. At the same time, Caitlin and her friends enjoy a movie at home. The story takes a dramatic turn one evening. The quiet streets are patrolled by a police car, and Detective John, known for handling tough cases, approaches Paul. Paul, tormented by a history of criminal activities, is used to getting hassled. This time, however, Detective John has a different agenda. Instead of questioning Paul about his infamous past, the detective delivers alarming news about his daughter, Caitlin. This news strikes Paul like a thunderbolt, leading him to hurry home, only to discover Caitlin is gone. Evan and Mike, her close friends, describe a frightening scene where masked people broke in and kidnapped her. Despite their brave efforts to stop the kidnappers, they were faced with armed resistance. Detective John suggests Paul should let the authorities handle it, assuring him they'll do everything possible to find Caitlin. The situation becomes more intense when Vanessa, tearfully, begs Paul to do whatever is necessary to rescue Caitlin. The following day, media coverage of Caitlin's abduction fills the air, calling for public assistance in the police's search efforts. But Paul is preoccupied with a suspicion. The abduction might be a belated act of vengeance linked to his past crimes, especially his clash with Yvonne. Ignoring the police's counsel, Paul decides to conduct his own inquiry. We are taken back to his criminal past through a flashback. He goes to Mike, hoping to learn crucial details about Caitlin's kidnappers. A strained conversation ensues, with Paul expecting Mike to have defended Caitlin. Mike shares the confusion of the incident, wishing he could have rescued her. In his quest for clues, Paul turns to Kane and Danny, offering them money for help, but their loyalty goes beyond financial incentives, and they agree to assist out of familial solidarity. Their investigation leads them to Oliver, a notable underworld figure. A heated confrontation with Oliver's girlfriend escalates but ultimately fails to provide any clue about Caitlin's location. Danny and Kane come back to Paul with disappointing news. Their efforts have led nowhere. Paul's trust in the police reaches its breaking point when Caitlin's body is found in a storm drain, a discovery that devastates him. After Caitlin's funeral, O'Connell, an old acquaintance, offers advice. He suggests that Paul, having left his mob life behind, should let the police handle the case instead of reverting to his old ways. Later, as Paul meets with Kane and Danny at his house, we're taken back to their criminal days through a flashback. They'd once ambushed a Russian mobster, stealing a significant amount of money and a Russian TD gun on his way to a delivery. This heist allowed Paul to abandon crime, but it ignited a fierce feud between their Irish gang and the Russian mob. Meanwhile, the police discover Caitlin was killed with a Russian TT pistol, the same type Paul once used in a mob hit. The detective instructs his colleague to keep this detail secret. Paul visits the school repeatedly to collect Caitlin's belongings. Kane and Danny then find out that the Russian TT gun was involved in Caitlin's murder. When Kane discusses this with Paul, it leads Paul to suspect connections to Chernov, the notorious mob leader they robbed 17 years earlier. Vanessa initially supports Paul's quest for answers, but she grows worried he might revert to his old violent self. This raises a question. Perhaps Paul has always been a violent person, unable to fully leave his past behind. Paul and his allies continue their quest for answers. They confront a Russian criminal named Vory, someone they've clashed with violently before. During a confrontation, Vory tries to escape, but ends up bleeding to death after Paul attacks him. One evening, the investigator talks to Paul, cautioning him against further violent actions and threatening arrest if he doesn't stop. Unperturbed, Paul later joins Kane and Danny in a raid on a house belonging to Russian drug dealers connected to the mafia. They brutally eliminate everyone inside. The following day, the detective and other police officers arrive at the crime scene. The investigator quickly deduces that Paul and his friends are behind this massacre. Their actions have now made them targets for Chernov, the Russian mobster whose men and operations they've just disrupted. Soon, a climactic confrontation looms. In the dimly lit confines of Kane's bar, a group of intimidating Russian gangsters enters, their arrival punctuated by a burst of gunfire that breaks the night's quiet. In the ensuing chaos, Kane bravely defends himself, but is ultimately overpowered, beaten, and captured. Meanwhile, Paul, sensing trouble, races to the bar. He arrives to see the Russian gangsters fleeing and impulsively follows them. His high-speed chase is quickly stopped by a blockade of police cars. Amidst this standoff, the detective steps forward, sternly addressing Paul. In an unexpected turn of events, the detective offers Paul a chance to step back from the brink. In the midst of these events, Kane is captured and tortured. The brutal Chernov, seeking retribution, relentlessly beats Kane. Concurrently, Paul hurries to Danny's house, bearing the grim news of Kane's capture. In a moment filled with agony, Kane confronts Chernov, suspecting that Caitlin's death was payback for a robbery they committed long ago. To his shock, Chernov reveals that the Russian they killed back then was his brother. Amidst this chaos, Paul starts to suspect Danny. He wonders if Danny's past actions led to Caitlin's death. This secret, known only to the three of them, eats away at Paul. Their original plan was to disappear with their stolen loot, leading a low-profile life. Overcome with anger, Paul violently ends his friendship with Danny, struggling to cope with what he has done. Meanwhile, Chernov arranges a deadly encounter with O'Connell, exposing Paul's role in reigniting an ancient gang feud. O'Connell, stubborn to the end, meets a grim fate, triggering a series of violent acts. Hidden in Paul's closet lies a Tokarev gun, a silent relic of their past crimes and the ensuing conflict. This weapon, cold and foreboding, is a reminder of a past Paul wishes to erase. One night, Evan sends a mysterious message to Mike, luring him to a secret rendezvous. However, Mike is met with a startling scene. Paul, hidden in the shadows, armed with a gun and a dangerous intent. The air is thick with tension, every second laden with suspense. As time passes, Mike's desperate pleas uncover the truth. In a twist, it's revealed that during a night of drinking and fascination with Paul's guns, an accidental shot rang out, changing everything. In their panic, they spun a web of lies, fabricating the kidnapping story that entangled them all. Paul, grappling with his internal turmoil, makes a crucial decision. He decides to resist the pull of his dark past and offers Mike a chance for redemption. Leaving behind the weight of their shared secrets, he walks away with a heavy heart. Once home, Paul calls his wife and opens up about the beginnings of his life in crime. He expresses regret for his past deeds and assures her that the darkness of his past will soon be lifted, unaware that the ghosts of his past are literally at his doorstep. He recounts to her the story of the first time he took a life, recalling how he was handed a knife during a bar altercation. In a final act of desperation, Paul stabs himself as he observes the men entering the room, guns aimed at him. Vanessa arrives home to a heart-wrenching scene. The police removing Paul's body from the house, her eyes brimming with tears. If you enjoyed this video, don't be shy to hit the like button, and if you disliked it, hit the dislike button twice, just to be sure. It would be best if you watched the whole movie. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe for more videos like this.